psychology probably has more to do with trading than anything else. The fundamentals, behind a company, behind, therefore their stock, I think influence the price of their stock less than human emotion does.
Welcome to the Not Snowboarding Podcast, a delightfully tasteful glimpse into the other side of snowboarding.
That was Thomas Heckler, and this is episode number 24 of the Not Snowboarding Podcast. I'm your host, Nate Mousson. Thank you for listening. Thanks for the new iTunes reviews, and thanks so much to everyone that's been supporting the podcast by using the Amazon banner ad at thenotsnowboardingpodcast.com before shopping on Amazon. Today's episode delves into some very new territory for the podcast. Thomas and I sat down together at Seven Springs during Superpark and dug deep into stock trading, the art of engineering music, and of course we talked a bit about snowboarding. Before we jump into the conversation, I have one more big thank you to say. Thank you to Pat and Mary at Snowboarder Magazine, Joel, Joe, Jordan, and the builders and park crew at Seven Springs, Lane and the team from Boreal, and of course the team from Bear Mountain. Thank you guys for bringing Superpark to Pennsylvania. It's hard for me to vocalize exactly how big this event was for me personally. And never mind the positive ripple effects that'll be felt from Superpark19 for years to come. Who knows? Maybe one of the kids that came down to watch from the parking lot will end up crushing it at Superpark25. Again, thank you to everyone that made this possible. Let's jump into the chat that I had with Burton Knowbuddy, Thomas Heckler. Thomas Heckler, man, we're here at Superpark. Super excited to chat with you. My buddy Josh Zirkle was riding the chair with him earlier, and I said, Josh, who do I need to talk with here? And he immediately said, Thomas. It's like, Thomas lives at the base of Breck, and he trades stocks. You need to talk with him. So,
Amongst other things.
Amongst other things, yeah, exactly. So maybe go ahead and share some of those other things, Thomas.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. This is pretty cool. This is awesome. Yeah. I'm 28. I've been snowboarding since 1993, I think, or 94. I was pretty young. Grew up in Stowe, Vermont, which was great, Got the mountain. I was really close to the mountain. And snowboarding, I guess, was a huge part of kind of that town in a way. I don't know, with Burton being right there, maybe some other kids in other places, maybe if I was someplace else, I wouldn't have seen snowboarding as early as I did. But, honestly, I don't even remember really how where I saw it for the first time. I mean, at Stowe, like who, what, anyway, it had a huge impact on me, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Right.
And, yeah, so grew up in Stowe, started snowboarding when I was pretty young, went to MMSC, Bud Keene was our coach, Jenna Richards. And they've gone on to do some pretty awesome things.
Yeah, Bud's doing a big coaching academy, right?
Yeah. But BKPRO, Bud Keene Pro Camps.
Yeah.
Which is pretty sick. And, and I met a lot of really awesome and dear friends that I still have today through snowboarding, and through USASAs and through the program at Mount Mansfield. A lot of kids that I'm still super close with now, I met, I think, because of snowboarding. And I was really into that for a while, all the way through, I guess, 10th grade at Stowe. After 10th grade, 11th grade, the summer before 11th, my family decided to take a trip to Norway.
Oh, wow.
Actually, yeah, which was really cool. My mom had some friends from college who are Norwegian, and she always wanted to go back. And so my parents sprung a trip for us to go out there for a year, actually, for the whole season. So that was pretty sweet.
You went to school there and everything?
Well, I homeschooled, but I went to an academy called NTG, NTG, which is an academy, snowboard academy. Well, it's a sports school, basically.
Perfect.
I guess is how you would say it. And they have a lot of different, sports, athletes that go to the school.
And snowboarding was one of them?
Snowboarding was one of them, yeah. And it's actually like really popular, amongst like most all the Norwegian kids I know. The shredders, riders that you would know, came out of that school. So we lived in Oslo. There was an Oslo school and a Geilo school. In Oslo at the time, I don't think they have it now, but they had a snowboard program. So I went to that. It was pretty sweet. It was cool. But, we were riding a ton. We were in the gym. Like, it was pretty serious, compared to, like, what I was doing before that, MMSE. And, we do contests and, training. I was in the academy program at Stowe. So, like, I would go up to, I guess it would call it a tutorial program or something, because we would leave at 11 every day, from school and go ride. And then the classes that we missed, we would be tutored in, twice a week or whatever. You have to pay the teachers or whatever, but I was lucky enough to do that. But coming from that, going over there, and it was quite an experience, and it was very serious, I guess, is what I'm.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that you say that, because I grew up snowboarding starting maybe a decade before you, and it wasn't serious at all.
Yeah.
I mean, it was all about just have fun. Going to the gym was not even it was like anti-gym.
Yeah.
If somebody went to the gym that was a snowboarder, then they were a jock. They weren't
Right.
really weren't even a snowboarder, most likely.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's proven, and if you look at all the pros today, that method, going to the gym, taking it serious, works. That's what takes it to the next level.
For some kids, yeah, definitely. And injury-wise, I totally agree with you. It's funny, though, because I was actually just talking to some of the guys on the some other nobodies today. Burton Knowbuddy. Hopefully you guys figured out what that is by now.
I made that mistake earlier, telling somebody that I was actually my buddy Nate Sheehan.
Yeah.
Is up here. He was a Park City dude for a while, and he lives near me in southern Pennsylvania, but he's up for the Superpark as well. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to be podcasting with a nobody. And he's like, dude, that's fucking harsh. How would you? Like, no, I didn't mean it like that.
It's cool. Today I was actually talking to a couple of guys about that, specifically the gym and kind of, I think it's still, maybe it's half and half. Some kids, super serious, and it's okay, and it's I think, it's super respectable, like dudes that devote all of their time, to snowboarding, and, guys that do it for a living, I get it, but there are guys, who are doing it professionally who don't, go to the gym and don't necessarily, they still kind of are anti. And I think that's cool. That's definitely cool too. But as you get older, you kids, any kids listening, believe me, and I'm not that old, but I'm old enough to know that the older you get, the harder it is to bounce back from stuff.
For sure.
I blew my knee out not this past January, but the January before, and had surgery right away. And so last year I was pretty much not snowboarding at all after the middle of December.
What kind of stuff did you do for rehab?
So I was lucky. I have a really, really good PT who sees a ton of ACL injuries. Like living in Colorado and living in the mountains specifically, I had it done. I had my knee fixed by Dr. Hackett, Tom Hackett, at Steadman Clinic. And they do a lot of athletes. Like, he does a ton of ACL work on, some of the, I'm sure he's fixed ACLs and, guys that you know of or know.
Did you do like the patella tendon or something?
No, I had a hamstring graft.
Oh wow!
When I did it, yeah. So it was a process, but I had Dr. Hackett was great. He gave me a lot of him and his team gave me a lot of information about what I should do, specifically for snowboarding, going into it. And then my PT that I have in Breckenridge, he's great. His name's Nate too, actually. He's the boss, and he got me back. He got me going pretty quick. At first it's a little bit slow the first 3 weeks, I guess, but I'm trying to think. You start out, you gotta just kind of. It's crazy. Your VMO when you tear your ACL completely goes away.
What's a VMO?
I don't know what it stands for or something sweet, but it's a little muscle kind of on the top inside of your knee. And it was insane. Within like a week and a half of me just tearing my ACL, my VMO was like almost not there. Your knee basically, parts of your knee kind of just shut down. They just sort of say, oh, well,
we're gone.
Yeah, we're not going to work anymore. So it's tough because you have, your whole life. Well, I mean, the first time you hurt your knee, you got your whole life up to that point, where you're using all these tiny muscles and stuff in your knee, and in, a week, it could just, it's basically they're gone. So they go away quick and it takes a while to get it back. Rehab at ACL's about 10 months to a year, pretty much.
What type of exercises did he have you doing specifically?
So specifically at first, leg lifts, a lot of leg lifts, just mellow, straight leg, you just lift it. And the kind of the point, I think, is to get the muscles in the VMO specifically activating, like firing. So it's different on a case-by-case basis, but for me, we actually used a muscle stim, which, you put little pads on and hook it up to a little electric machine, sends a current, into the pad, which is placed, on or around the, the muscles you want to activate, hamstring, quad, VMO.
I used one on my back a couple years ago.
Oh, yeah?
Almost like pulsates, and you can turn it up to the point where it's almost painful.
Oh, no, it sucks. It hurts, it hurts, but it's, we would do like 10 seconds of stim and then 10 seconds not. So like so it was basically like a 10-second lift. Like you would lift as you get the stim and it like makes the muscle fire. You have to reteach, some of your muscles to work, basically. Like I want to lift my leg. Now is when you need to work,
Right.
So it's kind of like retraining your muscle memory almost. It's kind of weird, I guess. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but shout out to my doctor. I'm not really sure. He'd probably have some really crazy stories to tell you. You should interview him sometime. He's seen a lot of guys.
I'm sure he has.
A lot of people.
In that location, lots of blown knees for sure.
He's fixed a lot of people and helped them get back to doing the things that they love to do.
So what else did you do during all this downtime?
What else did I do? Well, I had a lot of time to work, I guess, which is tough because living in the mountain, I mean, I kind of have the best of everything, so I day trade, I guess is what you would say, that's how I make the majority of my money, to live, which is modest at this point, but, it's, enough.
How does your accountant like you?
I am my own accountant at this point.
That's great.
I trade online. I actually trade an account for a firm, which basically means I get help funding in order to. The more money you have, the more money you can make. Basically,
yeah,
it's really
leverage.
hard. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to trade stock and options without having a nice little nest egg sort of to. I mean, if you don't, it's fine, but you're limited in the sense of like what you can actually, what names you can afford to buy and sell, because you might have a $80 stock that's this is not very volatile. You only have 10 or 15 cent fluctuations. The same as you could have a $4 stock that might do the same thing, but you need a lot more capital to be able to trade an $80 name than you would a $4 name,
Absolutely.
as far as share size is concerned, position size of what you're working with. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of traders, fortunate traders, who generally are pretty good, who can get jobs trading for funds, that's what they'll do. They'll get, some money, some capital behind them, and then they just will basically pay, a percentage of their earnings back to the fund each month for, and I guess probably, depending on the fund. I mean, everything's probably structured differently, depending on where you go.
Right. And I've done some trading in a different lifetime as well. I wouldn't call it day trading, more like swing trading. But I'm sure that people listening to this are thinking like, wow, that sounds like the best job ever. I can, be on my computer online. It sounds easy to make money at stocks, and it's not, right? It's very, very calculated, and I would imagine you're managing your risk.
And that's exactly right. You're exactly right. I mean, people ask you what you do, some people, they don't, they're kind of scared of, like, I think, you say, oh, I'm a day trader, and people will figure like, oh, that's complicated. That's like really, I don't know anything about that or anything about the stock market, In actuality, it's really not that complicated. The concept isn't complicated. It's very difficult to do. And yes, it's risk management.
Yeah, just buy low, sell high. It's real easy.
Oh, it's simple. It's very, very simple, It's it's like, people are like, oh, it's Vegas, it's gambling. And it is in a sense, but it's like poker. I mean, it's risk management. You have to know your hand and know the odds. And as long as you have a strategy that works, and you can see your hand, then, over time, if you commit, the same amount of risk in every trade that you do, and you stick to your plan, and you've proven that it does work 51 or more % of the time, then you will make money over time.
What's the analogy I used to hear? Plan your trade and trade your plan.
Right.
I think was it. And so you've mentioned risk a couple times. Like, how calculated do you get when determining risk? Is risk like more important than the trade value, or is risk part of it? I mean, how?
Yeah, when I say risk, like, what I mean is, not just like how much exposure you have, but also, what your, I guess what your downside is. I guess, like, in any trade, you go into it and you say, and you can do, it's as easy as, for me, like, I'm a field trader in a sense. Like, I don't have a specific script that I stick to every time. More and more guys are getting into that, and, and automating it. Algorithms are very calculated. It's just, it's just you write it and it just sticks to the plan. That's it. And it's based on percentages. It can be based on dollar amounts.
They can back test them too, which is interesting. Mm-hmm. So you write this algorithm, and then you have all the history of everything that's happened to date, and you can go, okay, so from 1920 to 1937, this algorithm would have done this,
right?
Or it would have been negative over these years, and that's kind of how you come up with the perfect one. Yep. Until it doesn't work,
For sure. Well, yeah, and things are always changing, and that's like, that's a big thing. It'll be interesting to see, like, how many of these, algorithms that trade, on specific strategies, whether, technical, fundamental, how many of them are actually, will be applied, 10 years down the line or whatever.
Right.
I mean, I've worked with, a few different winning strategies in the last few years that don't work anymore. And a lot of the best strategies that you're ever going to come across or think up, are ones that are, fortunately probably going to be temporary,
Right.
I guess the best one would be one that works forever, but I don't know that that's the case, It's
the Warren Buffett buy and hold forever.
Well, I mean, that's a big thing. And I think that's actually kind of an interesting point. It makes me think about that I've thought about a lot. I have a lot of friends who are my age, or maybe even a little bit older, who don't really know anything about investing or, even how to buy a stock,
Right.
How to go into, how to open a brokerage account at a bank, and go into their, software and, buy something. They don't even really think about it. Or they say like, oh, I'd love to like start investing, but nobody's really, I don't know if nobody's interested in it or they just like don't apply themselves to like want to be. I'm not really sure, but it is interesting because it seems like my generation is much less kind of in tune with, how money or wealth is accumulated, that versus like my parents' generation, And maybe that's just, my father was in finance all his life, and that's how he was a trader, and that's how I, got introduced to it. And
Interesting.
that's how if he wasn't a trader, I probably would be in the same boat as everybody else. It's just interesting because I think it's important, and I think it's important for younger people to sort of think about how they got to where they are. And I'm talking about, one specific sort of group of guys, like kids that I grew up with,
Yeah.
Vermont, middle class or well-to-do, families that, have a lot of kids that, they have a lot of opportunity, and they had a lot of opportunity to be able to go snowboard and to do all these great things, but where that comes from, like the ability to be able to go and ride every weekend, have a ski pass, to have equipment, like that stuff costs so much money. And there are a lot of kids that don't really, I think, understand how difficult, it really was for their parents or their grandparents or whoever to get to, and how much work went into getting to that point where they could have the luxury to like go and snowboard and do something that makes them so happy.
They don't know anything else. They know
exactly.
That, I need a new board. Mom and Dad buy it. I need to get to the mountain. Mom and Dad get me there. And
you're right.
The other thing that money's compounded over time and has allowed them the time. Time and money have that entanglement always together where, like you said, they just don't even realize that even though they're doing nothing nebulous, they're not working.
Right.
They're on somebody's dime when they're doing nothing. Somebody's feeding them. That's pretty amazing. I think the thing that could kind of bridge the gap, so it's kind of like a market opportunity is what I see, is you've got this group of people that potentially will be income earners, because that's the first thing. If they're just snowboarding all the time and they don't have a job, they have nothing to invest. But once they do get a job, and once it's a high paying enough job, or if it's something where it's a little bit more corporate and they're automatically doing a 401k, the investments will be taken care of, but probably not. Maybe they've been snowboarding, didn't go to college, and they're going to get an hourly job with no 401k. What's going to bridge the gap to get them to put a little bit of that away? I think it's something that's a little bit more contemporary, like an app. There's an app out there that I actually use called Acorns. And what it does is every time I spend any fraction of $1, it takes the balance and puts it into the account.
Oh,
and
wow.
Automatically saves it, pulls it from my checking account. And I'm not plugging it.
That's
I just
cool.
think it's cool. It's a cool way for me to save the loose change
Right.
that I've already spent.
Right.
You can pick out of 4 different funds that are just basically very dumbed down, very basic about risk tolerance. So there's like low risk, moderate, and then high risk. And then it shows you estimated returns based on your risk tolerance. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a really cool little way for somebody who's not
So
going to be...
are they a bank?
They must be to some aspect.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I haven't done like deep due diligence to see if my money's going to be there. They could be like shady, but they're approved, but they're in the app store and everything else.
So, but is it an app that you like link to your bank?
Yeah.
Okay,
you link to
so
your
that's
bank account.
Okay, so that's cool. So I wonder how that works. Yeah, that'd be cool to look into. That's I think bridging the gap there, some way would definitely be cool. maybe it's just part of getting older. You get
Absolutely.
to a certain point where you realize, like, whoa, life costs money.
Yeah.
You be coming up and you're riding all the time, and and you're thinking, oh, money, like, oh, it's just money, money is just, it doesn't make me happy, snowboarding makes me happy, or, whatever you do makes you happy, and I don't need any of that, and, it's, people go to school just to, make money. I don't want to, I'm not going to do that, and then, you have ACL surgery and you realize it costs $100,000 to fix a knee.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, and, it's crazy, I had insurance, but still, I mean, $6,500 out of pocket for a knee, plus I got to go and, I got to pay for PT, $100 a session, and if, you're going to get to a certain point, you might be 25 and, your parents are helping you out and making sure that you're all right, or whoever. But, think about having a family yourself one day. You find a girl and all of a sudden things go quick, and all of a sudden you got a kid or whatever. And it's like, whoa, it's eye opening. And no, I'm not married. I'm not close to married, but I'm just saying, I mean, I know how quick it can happen and how life comes at you fast, and you gotta plan ahead,
Yeah, life definitely costs money. You mentioned something earlier, kind of casually, like technical or fundamental, and you also mentioned that you don't have necessarily any dyed-in-the-wool method that you're using for trading. Could you maybe just kind of expand on the difference between technical and fundamental, and which one you maybe subscribe to more?
So just very basically, technical, there's, look at it as technical and fundamental analysis of a company, let's say, stock, basically, and when we talk about stock, it's basically just shares of a company. People get confused about what stock is, it's just kind of it's just a name for, you're basically buying into that company. You're owning part of that company. There's the fundamental side of a company's business. So, how much money they make, how much money they gross, how much they net, how much, the product or, service they sell, they file, quarterlies, quarterly reports, with the SEC, a publicly traded company will do that. And, for the most part, anything that trades on a major exchange, and you can look at those numbers and, look at their news and go to the CEO the CEO's, headquarters, wherever he's at, and talk to him, or, somebody that works under him, and find out, about what they're doing and what their plans are, and all that stuff. That would be considered fundamental analysis of the company.
Can listen to the quarterly call. It's usually in line with the report.
Yeah. Shareholders call, they'll do a conference call every quarter, with anybody that, owns shares of their company. Can call in and listen, and ask questions. So that would be like fundamental, if you're trading. And
they'll usually dodge the questions, by the way.
Some of the more important ones, but it all depends. Yeah. It all depends kind of, what's going on. But if you were to buy or, sell a stock, or get an idea based on that information, the fundamental information, regarding the company, that's fundamental trading, fundamental analysis. Technical refers to their stock chart, let's say. Technically, I looking at a chart, like I do a lot of technical analysis when I look at buying and selling a company. Basically just price movement. So there's certain triggers that I look for, meaning like, if a stock, looking at a stock chart, if the price action moves a certain way, there are certain things, that I look for that would, help me kind of, pull the trigger and say, I want to buy it here, I want to sell it here, that kind of thing.
So I'll just put up an example that I've used in the past, a stock that's maybe in a long-term downtrend. So you can just look at the chart on the wall and from a million miles away point and go, okay, 5 years ago it was at $10, now it's at $1. It's been in a very clear downtrend, and you could draw a line from that $10 to $1, and it's never gone above that line. Well, when it crosses above that line, that might be something of interest, like a buy trigger, like what's going on. And then if it's like, maybe you want to do a little fundamental analysis on it at that point, but that would be a technical signal to me to say, hey, something has potentially changed here. Maybe this is bottomed. Maybe it's getting ready to turn around. The other thing that you didn't mention quite yet, because price is like king, but it's volume, right? How much trading is going on of the stock, and that can be another thing. So if that stock crossed that line, say around $1 and went to $1.20 all of a sudden, now it's above a line that it hasn't been above for several years, and somebody's buying millions and millions of shares, and that's way more than what's occurred over the past history. Now it's like really interesting, right? So that's kind of a technical setup in my mind.
Yeah, price action and volume action, and they go both, hand in hand. Those are, and I do a lot of trading based on that, just day to day, but like you mentioned, I mean, one of the, something you should do is, if you do get an idea, just looking at a chart, technical perspective, definitely do fundamental homework on it. If I see a stock popping, if stock's up 20% on the day, or something crazy. I mean, obviously there's there's definitely some fundamental news going in. And if there isn't, I would short the stock, I'd say, a little pops, for whatever reason. But yeah, like definitely back up. I would back up, technical with a little fundamental at the end of the day.
And I take it for granted, shorting, buying, selling. A lot of people don't know what shorting is. Do you want to maybe?
So like I don't know if this is like completely technically accurate, but this is kind of how I explain it to friends of mine that ask me kind of what like short selling is. First we'll start just with at the long side. So we have long side, we have short side. Long side would be, let's put it in terms that like everybody can relate to. So let's say you go to a farmer's market and it's a beautiful day, right? Beautiful Saturday. And there's one vendor selling a loaf of bread. Okay? That's, he has a lot of loaves, but there's only one vendor selling this. And, you try some and everybody's trying some and it's good bread, right? He's selling it for $2 a loaf. You figure, there's only, this guy's only got, limited amounts of bread. There's tons of people here. I bet you by the end of the day, somebody's going to be willing to give me $4 for that loaf of bread. So you would basically, you'd see an opportunity to get long this bread, as you say. So you would buy a loaf for $2, or more than one loaf for $2 each.
Because you think there's going to be a lot of demand for this bread.
Exactly. You figure that the price is going to go up, and sure enough, at the end of the day, the vendor's out of bread and people are like, where can I get this? And you're like, well, I'll sell you a loaf for $4, okay, deal. Now you just made the difference. So that's, you buy low, you sell high. So let's flip that around, right? So the next weekend, you go to the farmer's market and it's raining and there's like hardly anybody there. And, there's like 15 vendors selling this bread because it was such a hot hit last week, right? So you're like, you look at all this bread out here in the rain and you're like, they're selling it for $4 a loaf. Like there's no way, like they're just going to try and get rid of it by the end of the day. Right? So you see another opportunity. So let's say you come to me, right? I don't know you come to me and you're like, I know you bought some loaves last week. Like, can I borrow a loaf from you? I'll give it back at the end of the day. So, yeah, sure. Here you go. So you take my loaf of bread. You go to the farmer's market. You find somebody that's willing to pay $4 for it. You sell it to them for $4, right? End of the day rolls around. Sure enough, like, vendors are just trying to get rid of this bread because, they've got too much and there's nobody buying it. Price goes down to $2 a loaf, right? So you basically then buy a loaf for $2. You just made the difference, and you give me the loaf of bread back. So that's kind of the concept, I guess, in short selling stock. Obviously, sometimes there's no stock to borrow from anywhere. It's what you would call hard to borrow. Sometimes there's names that you want to short and you can't. But generally, I guess that's kind of the concept behind it. So you can make money when a stock's going up, and you can make money when a stock's going down.
And you can basically sell a stock before you ever buy it, which is essentially how I picture a short to be.
Yeah, I guess. You could say that.
It's interesting. We won't get into it too much because it's probably pretty nerdy, but a lot of the regulation that you mentioned around hard to borrow has occurred over the past few years, right? They used to be able to short pretty extremely to the point where it might destroy a company. And I think some of those things have been put in place to maybe protect businesses that want to do business and not just have their stock control their business.
For sure. And that's another good point. You look at, excuse me, I don't know if any of you, followed the Herbalife news, the last year, between Bill Ackman and Carl Icahn, but they basically been, battling over whether Herbalife is essentially a pyramid scheme.
Right.
The business model. Now, I don't know much about Herbalife, and, I don't really have any comment on who I think is right. But, at the end of the day, like, yes, like, who says what can affect a company's stock price tremendously. And it doesn't have to be based upon anything, fundamental. Company's the same as it was yesterday, but somebody, went on the air and said, this company rocks or this company sucks. And all of a sudden, they've got 100,000 people that listen to their opinion. You either going to have a good day or you got a problem.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of fine line, kind of gray areas, I guess, with that the SEC's tried maybe to regulate more, more of, as of recently. I don't really know. I don't follow a lot of that stuff very closely, honestly.
It becomes noise if you're a trader, right? And a lot of the books I used to read when I was thinking about doing it more seriously would always go back to, I'd buy a book expecting to find the next best formula, the next best tip, but it would always be about self-work and removing attachment from winning or losing and trading your system. A lot of them would even go to the point of sending away to like deep meditation camps, and these people were like spiritual. It was really interesting. A lot of the traders were very much into that self-work and unattached. Some of them would enter trades with the system, but not with a bias whether to buy or sell first, to go long or go short. So basically, at the flip of a coin, here's a ticker. This is my system. Do I go long or short? It doesn't matter because I have a system, like you said before, that works 51% of the time. And I'm unattached. I'm unemotional if it's going up. I'm working to be just as unemotional if it's going down. I just need to let my system work.
It's a good point. Emotion and psychology is a huge part of, the human psyche, how our minds work, what we are, how we feel when certain things happen to us is really a huge driving force of whether the stock market goes up or down, and whether individual stocks go up or down, which then influences the entire market. Because, that's it's an interesting thing. There is, I think, more psychology at least in the shorter term, psychology probably has more to do with trading than anything else. The fundamentals, behind a company, behind, therefore their stock, I think influence the price of their stock less than human emotion does. And not over the long term. I mean, that's why you got guys like Warren Buffett who have made billions of dollars by basically dumbing it down and saying, it's like Detroit, right? Like prices in Detroit, the housing collapse, Detroit got hit really, really hard. There were a ton of, and before that, I guess there were a ton of buildings, high rises that were vacant, that were basically being blown out, for like no cost whatsoever. And some of the hardest hit cities in America, that was happening too. And all over the world. We're literally like, they're just liquidating, And analysts are saying, it's going to take 20 years, 30, 40 years before any of that stuff turns around. Maybe. This might just be it. I mean, people were just expanding, and then all of a sudden overnight, it's basically worthless, so they're just blowing this stuff out, and people are saying, I would never, no way, the economy's just getting worse, things are bad, things are really bad, but you got the smartest guys in the room are the guys that can see through all of that noise and see an opportunity. And that's what a lot of the smartest guys were doing, and they're buying up buildings in Detroit.
City blocks.
Whole entire blocks for, really nothing. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? But if you look at, over time, you look at Warren Buffett, you look at guys that, were buying companies that people were saying, this is dog shit. Nobody, these are companies are never going to amount to anything. Over time, things tend to turn around, and it's always, the smart guys who are buying everything that everybody else doesn't want.
Yeah.
And it's proven, yet it's so difficult to do.
Because at that time, think back to 2008 when everything's crashing, everything's horrible.
It's the end of the world, man.
It's the end of the world mentality. That's what you're being told on the news. That's what everybody's talking about. All of a sudden, people that have never traded stocks in their life know that it's a bad place to be because it's on the front page of the newspaper. It's on the front of every website. And people that do have stocks and 401ks are seeing that their IRAs and all that stuff have gotten hit. So they're getting out of them at the worst time. And it's just like, stocks are horrible. It's been a bad investment for me. And then you've got people quietly buying them up left and right. Mm-hmm. The other thing that Buffett does pretty consistently that is really smart is he takes trades that he can't lose. He has enough money where he is looked at as a bank for a lot of people in these bailout situations. And he'll structure a deal where I'm going to get the name of the company wrong, but I'm going to say Ford needs X million dollars to restructure, and nobody wants to give it to them because it looks like they're about to fall apart. Well, Buffett will say, yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that over 4 or 5 years, and it'll be a 15% return.
Right.
And no problem. He can't lose.
Well, if the world actually ends, then yeah, exactly. He does. But that's, in 2008, the crisis that we've been through, with the government stepping in and kind of, ensuring that we don't all starve to death, and our bank accounts, we can still access them. It's sort of, it's maybe that's a kind of different than, and it definitely was different than what, other opportunities to make money in the past. Yeah. Just because of like the sheer scale of, how big and how serious that was. I mean, and it was serious. I mean, it really was serious. And people are quick to, and young kids, young guys, friends of mine, they're quick to say, government, they come in and they bail out all these banks, and like these guys are rich, and they fly into the summit on private jets. They're all bankrupt, but like yet they're still like, that's just the way the world is. But at the end of the day, what matters is that your bank account, your ATM still spewed your money out.
Right. The system still works.
That's the thing. I mean, if they didn't step in and and the government didn't bail out these banks, by bailout, just ensuring that our bank stays open, it would have been really, really bad for everyone, I mean, they basically, there wasn't really any other choice, I guess.
I subscribe a little bit to the gold bug mentality, which is a gold bug is kind of like these old school dudes that think that when the end comes, gold and silver will be the only true money. And they were just like salivating at that point in time, like, yes, it's finally happening. And the thing that was painful for a lot of them, if I remember correctly, is that the price of gold and silver correlated more to the stock market. Is that right? It didn't explode. I think that was a couple years later. It was
before. Yeah, I've only been trading for a few years.
Okay.
So I don't really, I wasn't following the correlation.
Yeah, but it's interesting that people and what their thoughts are about money, like at the root of it.
Right.
Some people think that the dollar, this fiat money, this IOU, this promise, is going away. And if you look at its value over time, inflation,
right,
the bailouts,
right,
we've created more of it.
Yeah.
It in some ways, its value per dollar, has reduced. And a lot of these folks think that, well, gold and silver has been around for hundreds of years, thousands of years, and that's going to be the ticket. But when you just look at the way that we operate today, you'd have to really change some things to be carrying around physical gold and silver all the time to buy your loaf of bread. It would be kind of a pain in the ass. That shit's heavy.
For sure.
So how would somebody whose like interest is piqued, someone who's like listening, that's already kind of thought like, yeah, I would like to be in the stock market in some way. I'd like to learn more about stocks in general, or I'd like to learn about trading. Where would you point that person to start to learn?
Go get a psychology degree.
Interesting.
Oh, honestly though, information is your friend. Read, just immerse yourself in it.
Any book in particular?
Oh, no. I mean, as far as trading is concerned, by the time the book comes out, the strategy's blown. You know what I mean? Like there's no book you can go and buy that'll tell you how to make money in the stock market. Really the ideas behind it are important to learn, and that's why I kind of wish that I had gone to school for finance to learn more of the terminology. I think quickly, and to be able to go out and to read more and process the information quicker. Because there's a lot of different terminology out there when it comes to the market and investing, and just so many different types of instruments you can buy and sell, and it's very it can get kind of overwhelming. One thing that I learned early on, or I guess was just told early on, and just now starting to kind of understand what it means. My dad used to say, "It's not rocket science. Keep it simple," and it's like, it's the stock market. I mean, it's not simple, but it is. If there's a company that you think is cool and you like and you think the product is great, find out, how you can be a part of that. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be a publicly traded company and you can buy some, but, just look into it, figure it out, who knows, maybe they're going to be going public, maybe there's a way you can invest some money into something that they're doing. Even small companies, go to them, go to their door and be like, hey, I want to invest. Are you guys trying to do anything? You trying to get a new machine to do whatever you do? Like, let me pitch in, give me something for that. Let me invest in you. It's simple, it's stuff you could, I guess starting out, just try to find something that you believe in, that you think is cool, and, do homework, read, find out as much as you can about the company, and it's a lot of it's trial and error, I mean, it's really, really tough to make money in the stock market and in investing, and you're going to screw up and you're going to lose money. But I mean, that's just manage your risk. If you only have, $5,000, don't risk more than 1,000 of it. And if that $1,000 doesn't work and you lose it, find something else that, is better. Do more homework. Invest another $1,000 and just kind of learn. Try to take in as much information as possible. I mean, it's like anything, if you're into something and you want to be successful at it, you have to really want to invest your time and invest your, mind space to that, into it. If not, it's you might be all right at it, but you're never going to be super, super good at it.
Very good advice. Let's kind of shift gears here and talk about something where you actually already helped us in the podcast here. We're set up in a hotel room at Seven Springs during the Superpark. I think we mentioned that earlier. And there was kind of this like buzzing in the headphones, and I tested stuff earlier and I kind of thought I heard it, and then I thought I didn't hear it, and Thomas sat down and was like, yeah, you're probably getting like a really bad buzzing, and that's going to be on the recording, and you fixed it in like less than a second.
Yeah, so I went to school for audio technology, recording arts, which is basically sound engineering, recording, mixing, mastering, music, specifically music. There's lots of different types of sound engineers, guys that do different, apply it to different things. But I went to school specifically for recording arts, so recording and mixing records, basically. And when I say mixing, I don't mean, to clarify, like, a lot of people, when I say, oh, I mix music, they're like, oh, yeah, you're a DJ? Like, that's sick. You do mashups? Like, what kind of house you like, No, mixing levels. So right. You get a recording, raw recording. We're recording right now, into microphones, into any type of recorder, or into the computer, let's say. And then after the fact, you go in, you arrange and set levels, and you add many different types of processing, basically, to create a picture, with a song. I guess that's how
interesting that you say that, because I actually have been doing all the production for the podcast, and I've been learning, and now I see audio pictures in the form of when people are talking.
Yeah, I
see the little lines that are created in the audio software.
Yeah.
in my head all the time. When we're having a conversation, I'm thinking like, oh, that's a big block. He just spoke like really loud. That's that's this. And then if there's a gap, I see the gap, the flat line kind of in there. It's really interesting that you say a picture.
Well, it is visual, I mean, back when vinyl was the medium. I mean, now it's cool, but back when people actually listened to it, because that's what people listen to, it was so much about that, about creating a visual picture. You sit in front of a high def stereo in your basement, you put on a record, and you close your eyes, and you can see the band. I guess that's the easiest way to put it. Like, if you're watching something live, the guitarist is to your left and the drummer's back there in the back, and like there's, it moves, it has movement, everything has a place. Now there's mix engineers that, mix live, for people, but like if you were just standing watching a band play, no mics, no nothing, the music it's a picture, there's sound, and it works together in a way that, you then in the studio, you try to recreate, I guess, and you can take it above and beyond, to create spaces that are incredible, that you would never actually be able to get a band into. You can create, really whatever you want. And that it's kind of cool, because I think listeners don't really understand that engineers are as musical and as much an artist as the actual musicians who play the instruments are. Because when we're working with compression and EQs and dynamic effects, reverbs and delays and stuff like that, it's as much an art and it's almost like an instrument in itself, playing a soundboard, doing level rides. You want the vocal to be louder, and quieter and further away, and you can create this sort of this movement and this movie with the sound. It's very artistic. It's cool.
As you're describing this, I think I feel like I've robbed my ears of an experience by listening to so much of what I've listened to over the past probably 5 or 6 years just directly through my iPhone speaker.
Well, and that's kind of, it's hard to get away from, though. I mean, what, you look at, what's easy, what's convenient. I mean, you're going to lug around. I mean, I have a record collection, right, of vinyl. And it's at my mom's house in Vermont in a basement, rotting away. And it'll probably never, ever get listened to again. I mean, I hope not, but probably most of that stuff won't. And that's just because it sucks. I mean, how am I supposed to travel or move, I mean, I moved out to Colorado and, I mean, what was I going to do? Spend $5,000, like ship records, I mean, theirs are heavy. I need to rent a whole trailer just for vinyl, crates of vinyl. It's like, a little gas mileage and whatnot, lugging 10 tons behind the car. But it's just the way it is. To kind of clarify, people maybe who don't know, an MP3 is a very small file. So it's like a photo. You have photos that are, these huge files. Big ass photo. It's large, but it's high quality, basically. You can resize it, you can edit it, you can do things to it. It maintains the integrity of the photo. And then you think of a photo, you upload a little JPEG to, Facebook or whatever, you wouldn't be able to blow that photo up and have it not be super pixelated, right? Same with music. So like an MP3 is basically a very small, compressed audio file. So, depending on what machine or what algorithm creates the MP3, certain information is going to be stripped, basically, of that sound file. In this case, let's say a song. So, like, you take a lossless file, a WAV file, let's say, or AIFF file off a CD that you bought, and you put it into iTunes. iTunes, regardless of what your copy or transfer or whatever it is, import settings are set to, it's still, going to create an MP3. It could be a high quality MP3, but it's still an MP3.
What's high quality, like 256?
320, I think.
320, okay.
So, anyway, the point is that it's still stripping information. And I don't know, it's been a long time since I've been in school. I can't remember exactly what. I think it's like some of the quietest information is lost. Some of the stuff that isn't necessarily perceived by the ear directly, but in the context of listening to the entire song, it adds character, it adds depth, it adds point of view, it adds certain things that are important, I think, to the song, that create, or to the sound of the song, I guess. That stuff's lost, and it sucks, because engineers spend a lot of time, and their passion, their art is basically kind of it's lost. It's
marginalized, yeah.
It's lost in a sense. Nowadays guys, engineers, they know what the end result's going to be. We're getting released on iTunes only, and that's it. And so engineers can mix for that. I don't know what their techniques are, but I mean, there's ways, dithering. There's certain ways to kind of try to maintain integrity of the song, the soundscape that you create, knowing that it's going to go straight to MP3, or something small. It just, and I have a lot of CDs, and I also have an iPod like everybody else, and, I also download music sometimes, occasionally, and I have bought stuff on iTunes because I want it now. I don't feel like driving 45 minutes to the nearest, place that actually sells CDs or ordering it. Normally, nowadays you gotta order CDs,
Right.
Nobody, Walmart, you get the edited version of the Taylor Swift CD, but it's not, you can't get like something you actually want. So it's, I've done it, and it's funny. I have put an MP3 basically version on my iPod of almost all the songs that I have on CDs that I like. And when I'm in the car, for instance, I can hear the difference if I play it, the MP3 version of a song, even off of a CD. If I play the MP3 version and then I play it back to back with like a lossless file type off the original CD, that song, there's a difference. There's a huge difference that, and maybe people don't realize it. Maybe, naive ear, for lack of a better term, couldn't really tell, but you could, like, you definitely could. And I just think people wouldn't really know why. They'd be like, well, that sounds better off this, the original.
Funny story, my father, right when CD recorders came out, the CDR, I thought it was like the coolest thing. I was just getting into a lot of the music that my dad was into. He was into like 60s music like Doors and Hendrix and all kinds of stuff. And I was like recording all of it and putting it into MP3 files that you could put on a CDR. And I was like, Dad, look, I've got like all of your Jimi Hendrix on one CD. And he was like, no, there's no way. Something's got to be lost. You can't put this much information all into one and retain everything. Right. So he listened to it and he's like, it doesn't sound as good. And I'm like, you are fucking crazy.
Yeah, you're crazy, man.
I've got them all right here. I'm stoked. I had, like you said, a very naive ear, but he knew right away. Maybe he was already kind of set off a little bit by just the fact that you took like
technology.
Yeah, I don't know, 10 CDs and put them all into one. Something's missing. It's got to be somewhere. So he was looking for something to be missing, maybe.
But it's true. And honestly, I think I had a girlfriend whose dad had a high def system in his basement, like a $20,000 stereo system, and he used to listen. What he used to listen to is like some. What the hell was it? It was kind of funny. It was like something that, he was just so into this one band. And he had literally all their vinyl and all their CDs. And he would sit in the basement and just listen to an entire album start to finish. Like, he would be like, we're going into the basement. Or I'm going into the basement. Don't come downstairs. You know what I mean? And literally, he would sit in there and have a listening session by himself to an album that he's probably listened to 100,000 times or whatever. Wow. He would listen to it start to finish, like for entertainment, right? But it was an experience. Like when you put on that record, in that environment, with a stereo that accurately, spits that sound out at you. And you sit right in the middle, right in the sweet spot, and you listen to it, that to him was as much entertainment as watching NCIS, with your girlfriend, right?
And probably more because you're using your imagination, you're seeing, like you said before, you're seeing the show, you're feeling the depth, the drummer's over here, the bassist is over there.
It's an experience, and the experience in music is, in many ways, it's kind of lost, now you got all this, kids these days, going into the club and eating the whatever and, listening to the bass and, that's, I guess, an experience too, but you don't need to eat the whatever and you don't need to, go into the club, and feel it. You put a record on at home and you enjoy it, and that's the entertainment. It's not the partying. It's not everything that goes along with the music. It's just the music. So, and real quick, that's snowboarding too, and skiing, right? Like we go up there and we ride and we surf, and that's the feeling, right? But you got 20,000 people who go up there on a holiday, and in Breckenridge
on a rental board.
I mean, that's all good, you know what I mean? But it's like they're there to drink, get drunk, get high, and go ski. And honestly, I don't know why. And every single weekend that, I'm up there, at Vail Resorts, it blows my mind, Like, the experience it's lost, man. You're high. Like, nothing against people that like to smoke weed. It's cool. But like when I know a lot of really talented dudes that love to get high and snowboard, and that's cool. But for me, and for a lot of other people, the feeling is snowboarding. That's what it is. And maybe like that's, they enhance it or whatever. But, for some people, they go up there. It's like skiing or snowboarding is a kind of like the accessory to just partying. It's like, oh, we're going to get drunk and like take a run. Instead of like, let's just take runs. And like, that's, I don't know. The experience, it's just funny. It's like music. People listen to music, I think, for, weird reasons now too. It's like, they're not there to just experience the music. They're there to like party, and music's just sort of like this byproduct of like them doing, heinous stuff with their friends. I don't know. Maybe I'm out of line.
No, not at all. Not at all. As we start to wind down here, I'm wondering, you've worked with some pretty interesting folks in the music industry. Who are some of the more interesting projects that you've worked on?
I've worked with some different major label artists, like recording projects and production projects. I've worked with Method Man. I've worked with Royce the 5'9". I've worked with Joe Budden, a bunch of New York guys, because I lived in New York. So it was really like, I was living in Jersey, actually. New York City. People are like, oh, you live in Jersey? Well, I just live across the river. I'm closer to downtown than most people that live in Queens or Staten Island. But yeah, a lot of New York-based artists. Some some you don't.
So one kind of question that I've asked is kind of a theme on the podcast is like taking some of your passions and then picking one if you can only do it for the rest of your life. So if it was music, snowboarding, or trading, and you could only do one for the rest of your life, which would it be? And why?
I don't know that I could answer that, honestly. I mean, it's tough. I mean, I'll just kind of break them down. I mean, I want to say snowboarding. Because the feeling that I get when I snowboard is, that's why I do it. There's no other reason but the feeling that I get when I just make a turn, like a good turn. But yeah, I mean, it kind of like expand. Trading, I love trading. It's fun, it's exciting, it's stimulating. It's a means to make money and to do the things that I want to do, other things that I want to do. Is it my first passion? No. Do I love it like I love writing songs or snowboarding? No, I don't. Which I touched on before, like it's difficult, to apply yourself sometimes. Like you have to have some sort of passion or some sort of, at least enough interest to really apply yourself, which I do, but as far as passion is concerned, music has always spoken to me, and I think maybe I got it from my grandmother. She passed away many years ago, but the years that, my younger years that I got to spend, seeing her once in not too much, a couple times a year, she was a conductor of a choir, and always played piano, and my grandparents had a grand piano in their house, and I used to, mess around on that and play with her. And I know, like, when I got into music lessons, she was so stoked on that, like piano lessons. Maybe I get it from her, but I don't know. Music always sort of spoke to me in some way. I don't know. To express myself through music, I guess. Creating something musically was really, I don't know, it was awesome. I always liked it.
Do you listen to music when you snowboard?
I don't.
Neither do I. Interesting. Have you tried it?
Yes, I have. I don't know. It's just not the same for me. Like, it's not the right place,
Right.
Like, creating, in music, like, I love listening to music, too. But, like, what I really love about music is creating it, And, like, so I listen to a lot of music and a lot of different music. And I love listening to music when I drive and, But, like, I don't actually go to that many shows at all. It's just kind of crazy. I don't really see a lot of live music. When I do, I'm like so into it. It's awesome. It's great. But I've never been one to like just go to shows all the time, buy tickets and go to shows to see bands.
I'm going to guess, I'm going to go out on a limb here. Maybe it's because of a similar experience that I had growing up. I grew up in the middle of nowhere in Montana, and you grew up in Vermont, maybe a little bit in the middle of somewhere, but largely Vermont as a whole is in the middle of nowhere.
Oh.
The big bands aren't coming to Vermont.
That's true.
That's why
true.
I never got in that cycle in high school of going to shows.
That's a very good point.
And then I moved out to the DC area, and all my friends were like, oh, let's go to a show. Like every weekend, there's a show, there's a show, there's a show. I'm like, you guys are crazy. You spend all your time going to shows.
Never thought about it like that. That's a good point. That could definitely, that might have something to do with it, for sure. Yeah, I don't know. I just I love listening to music in a controlled environment, and driving was always that. Like, I've always put stereo systems in my car. And not just for bass and all that, to rattle the trunk or get chicks to, like, look at you or whatever, but I've always enjoyed driving and listening to music, and having a high-def listening area in a car, to me, is just like, it's great. I love it, and that's probably where I listen to the majority of my music. Snowboarding, music never really enhanced anything for me. It can give you a certain feeling, help you tune out. If you're at Superpark and you're like about to drop into something super gnarly, and maybe your favorite song or something that calms you down or something gets you hyped up. For different people, it's different, but it can help really kind of get you in that zone that you want to be in, that makes you comfortable and helps push you to kind of do things that you've never done before. So I see there's value in that for some kids, but for me, I don't know, snowboarding is kind of, I don't know. I like the sort of surround sound of just shredding. Being able to hear other people on the hill too is, day to day. There's so many kids that ride around Colorado, and you can't talk, they can't hear you. It's a little sketch, actually. Yeah. I think it's a little bit loose that, it's kind of like, dude's sort of just everywhere and nobody can hear anybody else. It's, they end up running into one another. But for me, I just never really got into it. And it's actually funny, too. I heard once that it might throw your equilibrium off a little bit. Might get, I don't know, balance. Sort of like having maybe one earbud in or something can, throw you off. I don't know.
Yeah, I actually tried that when I was kind of weaning myself off of music. While snowboarding, I tried just one, and that was super weird. That was like one or two runs. I'm like, no, I'm done. That's worse than anything, because now maybe it's just the way my brain works or something. It was making it harder for me. It was like something extra. I had to concentrate on more because it wasn't a whole sound.
Right.
And then you'd have somebody talking to you on the lift, and you'd be trying to listen to too many things. It was hugely distracting for me. But my wife does it no problem.
Yeah.
That's her thing. She rides her motorcycle that way with just one in.
That's sick. She has a motorcycle? That's all. You have a motorcycle?
Yeah.
Sick, man.
Yeah. Actually, it's a funny story. I thought it was like a midlife crisis thing. I think I was probably 29 or 30, and I was just dead set on buying a motorcycle and kind of initiated the process. And I went and told her I was buying one, and she said, awesome, I'll get one too.
That's sick.
I was expecting an argument or something.
Awesome, yeah. No, that's great, man. That's really rad.
Super funny.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up here, man, so we can get back out to the streets and hang out and snowboard some more, where can people find you on the internet? Are you Instagram or Facebook or?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I go by Heckler House, for my music and stuff. That's my company. Heckler House, Heckler House, one word.
Cool.
Heckler's my last name, so it's at Heckler House. That's pretty much where you can find me, or add me on Facebook if you don't have a weird Facebook chat or whatever. I don't know, just hit me up.
If you want
if you want to poke me, add me on Facebook. No, but I don't have a lot of music. Like, I don't have a SoundCloud or anything like that. Most of what I do is work for hire, production-wise. Like, so I do specific songs and projects, on a per project basis for, specific artists. I don't do a lot of my own stuff, so I don't have, like, anywhere you can go and listen to music. But, through, like, Facebook and Instagram, I post stuff that I've done. So
cool.
Yeah.
One final question. What's the gnarliest thing you've seen at Superpark so far?
The gnarliest thing that I've seen on Instagram or in person?
IRL, in real life.
Today, my buddy Jack did a backside 7 over the wedge to right and left. He went right on it, and he went to the absolute bottom of the landing, and he stomped the hell out of it, and it was probably one of the sicker things that I've seen in real life here.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was standing in the parking lot around noon today looking up at that jump, and not very many people are hitting it because it's super big, intimidating.
Yeah, it's pretty intimidating.
And if
that's
you hit it
for
straight,
sure.
If you hit it straight, there's no landing.
Oh, yeah.
You
gotta go right or left, yeah.
And everybody that I did see was going right, and they were landing about in the middle of it, and I was scared for them. So if your boy sent it to the bottom, he's lucky to be alive.
Yeah, well, he's just a nobody, Nobody was paying attention, Nobody cares. But it was really, really sick.
That's
really
awesome.
Sick. Yeah.
Thank you so much for chatting for me today.
Thank you.
This is rad.
It was really cool. It was really cool being here. Thank you.
So just an FYI, or a little house cleaning, if you will. I'm heading to Hawaii in a couple of days to surf for pretty much the rest of the month. If you happen to be a Hawaiian listener, I'd be really psyched to meet up, and maybe you could even point me in the direction of some of the smaller waves. If so, shoot me an email at nate@shredsouls.com. But I really mention this because I want to let you know that the podcast schedule might get a little rocky over the next few weeks. Episodes might go up on odd days as opposed to the Sunday night schedule that we've been on. I guess it'll just depend on travel, internet access, and how good the surf is. Anyways, until next time, aloha.
Thank you for listening to the Not Snowboarding Podcast. To hear more episodes, go to www.notsnowboardingpodcast.com.
Hearing a little feedback. I think that's just in the headphones, though.
Where are you recording into?
This Roland recorder back here.
Okay. So you can't see it, like levels and.
Yeah, sorta.
So if we're quiet, like, do you see it picking up?
Yeah.
Like, if it's totally quiet, can you see because like when you record, like if you're recording in it, like, Pro Tools or GarageBand or something, you could see static if there was.
I don't think there is.
It's probably, it could be just in that, but I hear it too, so chances are it probably is. And it's probably that we have power cords and mic cables together.
That did it.
Dude. There you go.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Anything with, like, current going through it, you want to try and keep, all your cables, like, if you ever hear that kind of thing, just sort of figure out, like, what could be giving off noise, and then what could, yeah, I think it's just this. Yeah, it's the Mac charger.
Brilliant. Lifesaver. You already improved the audio quality of the podcast.
There you go.